All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Franco, and I am from the University of Rhode Island's LSC 531 class, Information Competencies for Youth. And I am talking with Dan Weiss from Libraries and Autism about inclusive practices in libraries. So, hi, Dan.
Hi, Jessica. Good to talk to you today.
Nice to speak with you as well. So, I thought we could start off by you just telling me a little bit about what Libraries and Autism is and why it is important to you.
Sure. Well, my colleague Meg Kalaya, and I started Libraries and Autism. A little bit of quick background. We received a grant from the State Library of New Jersey, which was federal money. So we had actually a pretty good amount of money, to start a project that had something to do with libraries and autism. It wasn't very clearly defined. So we were one of, I think, 6 libraries that got the grant money, and we decided to focus our efforts at customer service ideas for librarians to help them serve people on the spectrum more effectively, and to also deliver some, along with that or as a part of that, like autism awareness for librarians, hoping to serve folks with ASD better. So we partnered with some local experts in our area. We have a very good school system here in town, and the New Jersey in general, and our towns a little more in particular, have a good reputation for providing services. So we were able to find some really great local experts at children's hospitals and other autism agencies. We got together with them. We sort of developed the strategies that we would talk about. And then our initial thought was we would present these to our staff, and then we would videotape that, and there you go. But to be that interesting or use up very much money, and we had a lot of money to use up. So we ended up hiring a professional documentary filmmaker who helped us to make the short video, which is still on our website. And I think it's been very effective. I think part of the reason it's been very effective is because of the filmmaker's ability to connect with people, and because of the 3 kids, one of whom actually like a young adult, who are in the film, are very engaging. And I think that connects with librarians when they see the actual kids, So yeah, I could go on and on, but that's sort of it in a nutshell of how the program got started, and it evolved. It evolved and has been evolving, from there. And we're proud of what we've managed to create. And interestingly, I won't say we didn't care about this topic before we started, but we really didn't know that much about it. And we always say when we go around to speak that we're not autism experts. What we've learned about autism, we've learned through this project pretty much, but it has become something kind of close to both of us for a bunch of different reasons. And I think the thing that drew us to it was our belief in the notion of that customer service, is really a prime piece of what public libraries or all libraries can offer to the people that are using them. And the idea that the library can be, a focal part of the community and an important part of the community for all our users, and to try not to, exclude any one group. So
That's really great. The main focus of your professional development was communication and encouraging better communication between the staff and the patrons, correct?
I'd say yes. Yeah.
Okay. What were some of the strategies that you used for that?
Well, in the film, we kind of I think one of the goals of our film was, and Meg and I had been through many, workshops for customer service or different kinds of, professional skills where it was either not concrete, a lot of theory and background that's sort of interesting, but doesn't necessarily serve you well when you get back to work the next day, and or also things that were like kind of complicated, or and you'd leave the workshop feeling very inspired and say, oh, this is great, I'm going to really do this, and then you get back to work the next day and kind of go, what did they say, what am I what am I supposed to do? So we wanted to focus on things that were like simple and direct and kind of easy to remember. And I guess we hope that if somebody could walk away with one or more, but maybe just one thing that they could sort of put into practice the next day. So the strategies that we suggest are really very basic things that we've come to feel are very, work as well for anybody, not just people on the spectrum.
Okay.
Greet everybody with a smile. Try to use somebody's name first when interacting with them. So Jessica, I see that we're something, like I've got your attention. We're making eye contact. Or if the person isn't making eye contact, talking about trying to assess the way that people communicate with you or don't communicate with you.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to, as opposed to the training that both Meg and I had as reference librarians, the notion of asking more closed-ended questions, very direct, easy to answer, kind of what, well, is this what you're looking for? Yes or no. Do you think you have enough information? Yes or no? Instead of the, oh, tell me more, which kind of leaves the patron like potentially floundering. So a bunch of ideas like that that are delineated in the film and are available on our website. We have like a tips handout sheet that people can download.
Okay, that was actually one of my next questions, was that you offer various forms of professional development through the website, and I was wondering what kind of workshops those are and resources that you have.
Well, part of the goal of the grant that started this whole thing was to come up with a notion that would be replicable by other libraries. So that's part of what we shot for, and I think we've succeeded. So we have people can contact us for a copy of the film, or you can watch the film, online right off the website. And so the idea was that somebody or that a library could use the film in a short, like 1 hour staff meeting. The film is about 18 minutes long, so it doesn't, that's only about a third of the time. And then you could spend a half hour or so talking about what you just saw. And that people interested, and kind of open the door to this type of thing. And in conjunction with that, you could download the tips handout sheet to remind you. And we developed a few other resources, like something called This Is My Library, which is like a social story template. And it's really nothing more than a PowerPoint file, that's a template. So you can make a social story, which is a useful tool that works well with kids on the spectrum, but also with all kids, people that like predictability and they like to know what's going to happen next and what's going to happen tomorrow and so on. So you could have a book that's like a visit to my library, but instead of being a visit to, instead of being Curious George visits the library or whatever, it could be your actual library with photographs of your entryway and your circ desk and your children. So here's Miss Susan, and she's, that kind of thing. And you initially we figured you could make that PowerPoint little book, and it could be short or it could be long or it could be beautiful or it could be scrappy, depending on your level of ability or interest. And then you could print it out and you could give it to people, or you could now, of course, or you could post it on your website, and we also found that that tool became a good tool for other kinds of things, like delivering, let's say, policy or procedures, like, let's say, a story time procedure. So it could be, story time at the so-and-so library. We all line up here. You could have a picture of where that is. And then, Miss Sally leads us all into the room, and then we sit down, and then we sing a song, and then we do this, and then we do that, and then, so kids have a sense of what's going to happen in a given situation. Or also
routine,
delivering rules for computer use or pretty much anything. So there's that, and we have another thing which is like a nonverbal communication tool, which also is a PowerPoint file with icons. So if you're trying to interact with somebody and it appears that they're not communicating verbally, maybe you can pull this tool out and say, hey, maybe this would help. Is this what you're looking for? Or, that kind of thing. That kind of tool could also work well with, non-English speaking patrons or stroke victims, anybody who's not verbal. And when we started this whole thing, I will say, back in the dark ages of 2008, like, iPads weren't even really around yet. Okay. So now I think there's much more of an expectation that a nonverbal person will most likely have, especially like a teen or an adult or something, or a child, their parent, will have some sort of communication tool with them in their pocket, on their device. So, and the workshops, so we thought that it could be like a self-propelled, workshop where any library could just use these tools online. And then over time, we got a lot of interest in would we come and talk to people about all of this. So we've done quite a bit of that over the years, working with libraries and regional libraries and state libraries. And the training that we do is essentially like a deeper look at what's in the film and what's on the website. And we spend time talking more about what autism is and what it isn't and how you can look at it. And we spend time also talking about perceptions and how to be welcoming and people's notions of what disability is, because a lot of being inclusive and welcoming really just has to do with your own perceptions, and that. So that's sort of it in a nutshell, I think.
Sorry, I muted myself, so I wasn't going into your news feed or your noise feed. Okay, that was really great. Thank you for answering that question. You mentioned a couple of times that this was all the result of a grant that you did in your own library, and I was curious how the reactions were once you implemented it and started.
At a local, like in our own libraries, you mean? Well, unfortunately, I'm not hearing you very well, but we So we got a really great.
Locally with.
Yeah.
You still there?
I'm still here. Sorry, I'm just not getting a good. I'm not hearing you very well. But
that's okay. I had to go to the public library to do this, so I'm sharing broadband.
There you go. See, we had a great reaction to all of this. I mean, I think a lot of the impediment can be for library staff being successful at providing these kinds of services is often just lack of information or lack of like firsthand experience with people with ASD. So you have a child who's misbehaving at the library and let's say beyond the scope of your average misbehaving child at the library. And so the staff response to that really is going to sort of determine how successful it is, because here's the child, here's the parent, let's say the mom is there, she's already nervous about going out in public because she's already knows that her kid is, going to cause a ruckus. And she's been through this a dozen times. And so she's already edgy. And, if the response at the library can be welcoming and embracive, and the parents and the family can be made to feel that this is like a safe place, even though, their kid is this or that or whatever, that can be a powerful thing. And that can start to build, trust and, kind of lead to other things. And I think we found a lot of that at our own libraries, that with a more welcoming attitude from librarians, that it can really blossom into something great, and very reciprocal between the library and the staff and the community.
Yeah, that's great. You said that it might blossom into other things. Has it blossomed into anything else? Any other specialized services?
Well, I'll say that we've, as I said before, we've been like evolving our notion of what this whole project is, and we've been very often enough. I mean, 2008, so it's already been about 7 years that we've been doing this. At many stages along the way, we felt like, oh well, I guess that's about it. When we first started, we did what all good librarians do with a project. We did like a literature search and really found pretty much nothing out there about service to the developmentally disabled at the library. Very, very little, and almost nothing. Lots of stuff about serving people with physical disabilities. So it's been gratifying over the last 7 years to see that that's changing a lot. There's interest from people like you, who are like still in school, which is fantastic. There are a lot of books now about service to people with developmental disabilities, very specifically with autism and other types of things. There are proven programming ideas that have spread far and wide, things like sensory story times. There's some, which again, like in 2007, probably people were using some of those kind of strategies and notions in story times, but it wasn't as clarified. So there's something called the Next Chapter Book Club, which is out of Ohio State University, which is like a kind of a reading group book club type of thing for teenagers and young adults that's getting a lot of notice these days. So yeah, it's nice to see that it's evolving. I'm One exciting thing is that just now working with some colleagues, we're actually starting to develop a grant program for libraries who have an innovative idea about how to provide service to people on the spectrum, or who want to implement a more already proven strategy, let's say like something like a sensory story time or an autism resource center at your library or things like that. So probably we'll have more information about that on the Libraries and Autism website like later in the fall. And it'll be for a good chunk of money that libraries can apply for to implement some activities or programming at their own library. I've just been involved with a great program at with the Illinois State Library called Targeting Autism. I went to like a weekend seminar about that. It attracted about 100 librarians from Illinois who all have a very direct interest in starting programs and partnering with others and doing things around this topic. So it continues to get attention, and I guess sadly in a way continues to be a need, but then happily in another way the need is at least being acknowledged and spoken to.
I agree. I've been doing some research projects for classes, and the resources there are more of them than there used to be when I first started grad school, but they're not as prevalent as they could be.
Yeah, still not so. I mean, there are some books. There's a woman named Carrie Banks who runs the Children's Place at the Brooklyn Public Library, which is a fantastic program, and she has a book out. Barbara Clipper, who's a librarian from Connecticut, has a great book out about programming for children and families with ASD. So, there are some very like professional level literature things. There's all sorts of information out there on blogs and on the web in general about, things like story times and how to make your library more sensory friendly and all kinds of stuff. So we're happy to see that it continues to grow,
Absolutely. Are there any resources that you recommend for librarians to use if they want to start this kind of work?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, like if you were a children's librarian or working with kids and you said, oh, I'd like to start a sensory story time at my library, but I don't know anything about that. There are no shortage of of great resources out there now for let's say that person, that type of program. So it would be relatively easy, I think, with a pretty simple Google search is going to pop up lots of stuff. I mentioned those couple of books. We're trying to, on our website, on the page called Strategies That Work, we're trying to have a little bit of a compilation of those kinds of things, ideas that have worked well for other people and links to resources about them, in case other libraries would like if you said, oh, that next chapter book club sounds intriguing, and I do seem to have, a handful of teenagers and that would be great. I wonder, how do I do that? So it's all out there. I mean, it takes work, and mostly I think all these things really just take, a good level of dedication, the part of the staff. But if you have the interest, the resources for, let's say, something like the Next Chapter Book Club, they're all very available. And again, it's tricky because what works great at my library might not be the perfect fit for you. So it does take some stick-to-itness to try something and then keep trying. I guess that's the key, kind of keep trying and keep tweaking to figure out, just what's the right fit for your community and your library and the folks that you're serving. I think making a connection with the parents, especially if you're working with younger kids, they're so happy to have public outlets that can include their kids and be successful, that they can really be a great asset, I think, in helping libraries figure out, because quite frankly, this whole project in a lot of ways started, yes, with money from a grant, but also with an interaction with a local mom who has a child who's fairly severely impacted on the spectrum. And she's in our film. So that's the woman's name is Adrienne Robertiello. And her son is Marco, the really sweet little boy who's in the film. And he's nonverbal, he's wheelchair bound, he's got all sorts of issues going on. But at an early point, when she first moved to the area, she came into the library very much with an attitude of like, hey, what can you do for me here and my family?
Yeah.
And our response was like, well, I don't know, what do you need? What could we do for you? And then she started saying that the things that she thought of and the things that she asked for were so like things we were all kind of already doing or would be more than happy to do. And so we kind of created this really nice partnership with her, and she became a great friend and advocate of the library, and it's been very, mutually beneficial for all of us. So I think that would be another thing, to reach, find the folks in your community. It's not that hard. We have found, as we've gone around doing these workshops, and we start out and say, so how many people here have some firsthand, direct experience with somebody on the spectrum? And the percentage is usually fairly high. They have a child or a sibling or a cousin or something like that, and if it's not firsthand, it's secondhand. Then these days you're talking to almost everybody, so the need is still there.
Thank you. My last question is if you have any advice for librarians looking to start this kind of communication and maybe even advance to doing programming like that.
Yeah, well, I think I've said it already. I mean, I think my only advice is the only thing I think you need is the desire to provide this kind of service, at your library, in your community. The role is, if you need permission and or support from your supervisor or your, director or your, et cetera, your board, there are little things that you can do, and so it just depends like how energy you have and how much you want to try to bite off, but like I said, I think if the whole topic in general is being very well received, it gets a lot of mileage in the community. It's a great PR, being good for the kids and the families that benefit directly from this. It can be a great PR, that's one reason why we created the little decal that we did, which is just our little use of the Libraries and Autism We're Connected logo used all over the place. And that's great. You know, it just, so who aren't families come in and say, oh, I saw that Libraries and Autism decal. What's that all about? And so you can continue to draw people in that way, you know. So
I like that.
yeah, and it has been successful, you know, because dealing with autism, they're kind of used to seeing that, whether you like it or not, they kind of recognize that. And so when they see something on the library, and you know, then my response is, oh, we've had some training, and we've had, you know, some autism awareness here, and we're looking for ways that we can serve your family better. So tell, you know, when we help you out here, which again is kind of the same thing that we do or would like to try to do for pretty much anybody that walks through the door. But you'll find, I think they're tired. Sometimes they're angry. All parents do, I guess, but you know, they have like some extra on their plate. And so it's nice to kind and see that there's some support there, you know. So think, you know, you can find resources on our website, and these days you can easily find resources on the place, you know, with some fairly simple web searching. And I'll be interested to see what the response is, because some of the money will go to libraries that want to implement kind of existing programs or strategies, but some of it we're hoping will go to libraries that are going to be creative and come up with some new kind of ideas of things that will work well, and that can benefit all of us eventually, you know.
Absolutely. That's a very exciting grant that you've come up with.
Yeah. Well, like your interest, quite frankly, right now. I mean, one thing we've noticed is that at library school, you know, are this perspective, you know, and it would be nice if they did come straight out of school with a little of this kind of thing in their mind, you know.
Yes,
So
I agree.
bring some of this with them.
All right. Well, thank you very much for meeting with me today.
My pleasure.
I think that about concludes it. And hopefully I'll keep in contact with you afterwards. And
Please.
to anybody who's watching, thank you for watching.
Yep.
And have a good day.